The original project cars worked out quite well for the developers at Slightly Mad Studios. They successfully crowdfunded a racing simulator, in under 4 years, that was able to compete with some bigger titles in the genre. The turnaround for the sequel was short, as it has taken just over 2 years to create, again with the aid of crowdfunding. Project Cars 2 is a sensible follow-up when it comes to content. There are more cars, tracks, weather conditions, manufacturers, and motorsport disciplines on offer. Simulation purists will find great value from the highly customizable experience, as they can settle in for a long drive. More casual fans will find more hurdles to leap over, although should still appreciate the variety and depth. While Project Cars 2 is often a great racing experience, it is also not consistent in quality. Project Cars 2 is designed to be a simulation, and that means it's inherently difficult. But it also is highly customizable in just about everything from AI difficulty, control sensitivity, race structure, vehicle type, and more. So it can be altered in such a way that even less experienced players can find enjoyment, albeit under limited conditions. When it comes to single-player, drivers will be able to compete in either custom events or the loosely structured career mode. Both provide access to an extensive list of vehicles and tracks, some of which you will come to know well. Although Project Cars 2 can't compete with the likes of Forza or older Gran Turismos when it comes to the car roster, its offering is extensive and varied. It has nearly 200 vehicles, and they are spread across a variety of disciplines and manufacturers. Traditional production supercars are represented well enough, with the likes of McLaren, Porsche, and Ferrari having models from different classes and generations. There are also karts, IndyCars, touring cars, and rallycross vehicles. Vehicle detail is usually high, both inside and out, although the damage modeling was poor for some. Collisions in rallycross merely resulted in a fender dropping off, for example. At least, with damage enabled, hitting barriers or other vehicles affected steering and/or straight-line speed. On top of that, vehicles handle extremely differently. Some have impressive aerodynamics to keep them on the track, while others require a feather touch of the accelerator. The car roster is solid and covers almost every type of race vehicle that isn't exclusively licensed to other games. Vehicles can be driven across some of the most iconic race circuits in the world. Famous tracks, including Nürburgring, Spa-Francorchamps, and Indianapolis Speedway, are awesome to experience firsthand. While most of the tracks are racing circuits, there are a handful of street courses and some custom off-road events. The official rallycross tracks new to the sequel are very similar to their counterparts in this year's Dirt 4. It even has that same industrial real-world location Dirtfish, although its ad hoc courses are thankfully quite different and fun. Both rallycross and IndyCar track offerings are substantial. The real strength with the tracks is that they can also vary considerably by changing options like time of day, season, weather, race length, time progression, and more. The rallycross offering is surprisingly robust. One cool feature in Project Cars 2 is the time progression and changing weather patterns. For long races, shadows move so they become unreliable braking points at corners. Time can be sped up, and this gives even short races a full day-night cycle. It can mean you might need to endure sunlight in your eyes around some turns, but it does minimize visual repetition. At night, the lighting is quite different and it's easy to overshoot corners. While the time progression was generally smooth, the changing weather was both dramatic and subtle. Overcast conditions turned into drizzle and then back to a dry track with believable realism. But short races had some abrupt weather changes, as there was often a distinctive transition between a mostly dry surface and one covered with puddles. The weather and time system is definitely good, and it does bring something quite interesting to the various events. Maybe you'll take the Jaguar XJ220 around Silverstone in the rain and watch it slip and slide as though its wheels are covered in grease. Compare that to a Lamborghini Huracan GT3 that is nearly glued to the sun-baked road on the glorious Long Beach Street circuit. Hop into a rallycross car and slice through the gravel as you use the car's shifting weight to avoid barriers while the sun sets. Or just take an Indy car around the oval track at Daytona and find out how hard it is to avoid traffic and debris at 230 miles per hour. The handling variety is impressive and many combinations are enjoyable to firstly learn and then exploit. You can also tweak most vehicles extensively, by changing fuel reserves, tire pressure, down forces, or suspension. A simple QA with a race engineer is a great starting point. Water on the tracks was regularly the toughest race obstacle for vehicles, requiring serious care when accelerating or steering. Puddles behaved like death traps, causing many vehicles to lose any semblance of traction or harshly veer to one side. Other vehicles just needed earlier braking due to the reduced friction. Some of these traction differences felt exaggerated to make for a harder driving experience, but that's for professional drivers to ascertain. Both cars and tracks need to be respected if you want to succeed, but certain combinations are far harder to master than others. Puddles found around corners can disrupt traction. One good way to experience a bit of everything, without thinking too much, is to complete the career mode. The career is tier-based, with 6 tiers that each have several different motorsport competitions, like Formula X or GT3. The idea is to pick one discipline, complete it, and then move to the next tier. In this way, you are practically guaranteed to get a broad experience but are given enough time to learn one particular subset of motorsport. Short races are possible, but the game is sometimes biased toward grueling sessions. At set points in the career, you'll be invited to mini-events that feature specific cars, and although they provide variety, completing them actually disrupts the flow because you may have to learn another vehicle and another track. Once you ascend to the next tier, events in previous tiers are locked. After completing the final tier, earlier disciplines can be attempted. While the career is structured better compared to the first game, it still lacks a bit in regards to progression. There are shiny trophies and accolades, but no funds to earn or vehicles to acquire. The career does have some broad goals to complete: win a certain number of events, earn affinity with a manufacturer, or compete in different vehicle types, but it could have been more rewarding. The career setup is satisfactory for a game with such a broad set of cars and tracks, although it does feel a little directionless. When you actually get into races, some issues begin to arise, particularly in regards to the AI drivers. Depending on your driving skill, and perhaps the control method used. The AI opponents are tough but not always a nice challenge. You can set both their ability and aggressiveness, but even at maximum aggression they parted too easily when coming up from behind. On low aggression, much slower computer drivers sometimes dodged sideways towards me when passing them on a straight. Their skill in the career was erratic and not in a good way, forcing me to change difficulty options on a per-race basis. In IndyCar, the backmarkers were actually faster on low skill than the default. At certain points it didn't appear like the AI settings were doing anything, or they affected proceedings in the opposite direction. Clowns to the left of me, jokers to the right. The AI seems to follow rigid internal rules, and this meant it occasionally broke in relation to the player. In the semi-final of the WRX Championships, 2 drivers smashed into barriers opposite each other and stayed that way for the remainder of the race, unable to figure out how to shift into reverse. Simulated drivers navigated slippery surfaces at high speeds, yet on an ice track, the entire field traveled as though they were in a school zone. Computer drivers rarely crashed, but there were nonsense chaos zones, and one driver managed to get stranded during a formation lap. Having a challenging and fair race with the AI was just as much about luck as it was tweaking difficulty settings. While the AI is problematic and inconsistent, there were many weird technical issues that hurt nearly as bad. After qualifying in second place, the game put me 11th on the grid. This happened several times across the career and was never consistent. Restarting usually fixed the problem. Skipping to the end of a qualifying session was occasionally flawed because some or all drivers beat their current 2-minute lap times by 1,030 seconds. Even timings in races went bonkers, as the game occasionally failed to record lap completions for either myself or AI drivers. One poor chap finished a 2 hours layman's race some 80 minutes off the pace. These simple issues are a big problem for players who are looking for short, but authentic, races, as they mean restarts are necessary. Other bizarre issues occurred with impunity. During a computer-controlled rolling start, my self-driving car actually slammed into the vehicle in front. You can choose to manually control starts for a smoother transition, but nearby AI drivers seemed offended and randomly crashed into me or others. During one snow event, my Ford Escort couldn't even make it to the first corner because it behaved like it was stuck. And in a long endurance race, my engineer told me to pit and repair some nasty damage, but my pit crew were a no-show after limping through the next lap. I requested a pit stop, but the crew must have been on the lunch break because the pit lane was empty. There were also a few relatively harmless visual bugs, like a driver model hovering above the starting line or invisible cars during a replay. After restarting an historic Lotus GP event, it was surprising to observe several vehicles cruise along with less than 4 wheels. They had lost them in the abandoned race. All these bugs may be fixed in time, but they are just a sample of what is on offer in the career mode. Flying cars are the future. Online racing is going to be less predictable because of the human element, but there were a few more tech issues to add to the pile. Joining games and merging hosts usually worked fine, although there were long delays or connection failures when switching between qualifying and race. Collisions and car movements functioned well enough, but some cars slid around the track without the corresponding tire squeals. You will need more patience when playing online because of the extra time added before and after sessions. If you join a game at the end of qualifying, all you can do is watch a screen with the leaderboard for a few minutes. There is also no way to filter out races currently in progress, and the server browser can take a while to show a modest list of online events. A good portion of the online lobbies seem to favor longish sessions and/or tweaked with the settings, manual gears, locked camera views, etc., so finding a game that suits might take a while. There is potential for some good online battles, but nagging issues cropped up a bit too often. Aside from the aforementioned technical bugs, the game is still a fairly good experience in terms of visual and audio presentation. In over 35 hours of racing, the game never crashed. It also looks great. Tracks have detailed road surfaces across various weather conditions. Seeing cloud shadows drift across rain puddles is pretty neat. Vehicle sounds are diverse and quite intricate, although tires are far too loud on default. With the included photo mode, the game has the potential to be near photorealistic. Performance on the test PC was good enough. Frame rate dropped a bit at night, with all those extra dynamic lights, but they sure look nice. Online races had some infrequent stuttering and a few disconnects. All racing was performed with an Xbox 360 controller, and it functioned decently after a few tweaks to the dead zone and sensitivity. When it works, it's a smashing good time. If you are a fan of Project Cars, then you probably already know what you are getting with the sequel. More tracks, more cars, and the latest in global warming weather phenomenon, all at the tip of your fingers in a highly customizable racing sim. Traditional simulator gamers, with a racing wheel and many hours to spare, will no doubt get immense enjoyment out of patiently learning each vehicle and every track. The car roster is solid and varied, the tracks are detailed and iconic. Those that prefer to merely dabble in a range of motorsports might struggle to overcome some obstacles. There are consistency issues with AI drivers and vehicle handling, and it has a truly bizarre collection of technical problems. If Slightly Mad Studios can fix these quirks, then Project Cars 2 will be a tremendous racing simulator, but until then its various misfires are too ubiquitous to willfully ignore. Presentation 86. Great visuals for tracks and vehicles. It can look quite realistic at times. Vehicle sounds are quite complex. Interface is good. Gameplay 77. Sometimes everything works so flawlessly that you'll wonder how other racing games can compete. Unfortunately, there are too many consistency issues with things like AI drivers and vehicle handling. Single player 72. The career has just enough structure to provide a broad experience. Could take anywhere from 15 to 200 hours to complete. Progression could be more rewarding. Multiplayer 68. More patience is needed online. The server browser could be improved and there are some connection issues. Collisions and network performance was mostly fine when in race. Performance show PC specs: CPU Intel i5 3570K, GPU XFX RX 480, GTR Black 8GB, RAM 16GB, DDR3 OS, Windows 10 Pro 64-bit 58. Frame rates were good and generally consistent. Bugs are quite varied and often bizarre, many disrupting the experience heavily and requiring restarts. Overall 71. Project Cars 2 has the potential to be one of the best racing simulators, thanks to the wonderful tracks, variety, and awesome vehicles, but AI flaws and a plethora of strange technical issues prevent it from being a consistently great experience. Page 2 News of the Week. More Halo games now backward compatible. The complete Halo library from Xbox 360 is now playable on Xbox One. Posted 2 days ago. Monster Hunter World releasing in January. The 2018 special editions of the game now up for pre-order 4 days ago. Mortal Empires campaign announced for TW Warhammer 2. A new free campaign added to list of content playable across the trilogy of games 2 days ago. Layers of Fear coming to Nintendo Switch. Horror game is coming soon. Will include DLC and HD Rumble global support 5 days ago. Final Fantasy 15 multiplayer DLC out next month. The Comrades expansion adds multiplayer to the RPG title 3 days ago. Coming soon. 3 days 1. Hob PC, PlayStation 4 3 days 2. Ruiner PC, PlayStation 4, Xbox One 3 days 3. Signmora Switch 3 days 4. SteamWorld Dig 2 PlayStation 4 6 days 6. Cuphead PC, Xbox One 6 days 7. FIFA 18 PC, PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4 Switch, Xbox 360, Xbox One. Recent galleries. Project Cars 214 images added yesterday. Pro Evolution Soccer 2018 10 images added 2 days ago. Destiny 2 8 images added 4 days ago. Planet of the Eyes 6 images added 5 days ago.